Hello and welcome. It's that time again for another spooky live stream where we have people come in and tell us their scariest ghost stories. Welcome, everybody. If you don't care, tap the screen, send some hearts. It's very much appreciated. It'll help get some people in here, interact with the stream, share, comment, do some things, whatever it takes. We got to get lots of cool spooky stories in here tonight. That is our goal. And hopefully some of the people from last night will come back because there were so many people last night. I'm so sorry I couldn't get to everybody. I was trying to hurry. Hey, Harry. So hopefully tonight we can get through. I feel like my camera angle is not right. I don't know. It doesn't matter. As long as you can see my monster, that's all that matters, and the guest. Probably should have turned my brightness up on my screen because I feel like I'm super dark. Like I'm obviously lurking in the dark as per usual, but I'm like, shadowy and extra spooky tonight, and it wasn't intentional. Go figure. So, how is everybody? How is everybody doing? Tap the screen, send some hearts. More hearts means more people, means more spooky stories. Why does it always tell me some comments in this live were filtered to protect the community's experience? That's so weird because, I usually just let people say whatever they want unless it gets, way too out of control, obviously. And then, I need some mods. I need, a whole bunch of mods, I think. I don't really have any. I have Chris. Chris is a mod. I don't know if Chris is here. If you're here, Chris, hello. Hi. Um, but yeah, so if any of my longtime viewers are interested in modding, oh, you can't come on? Oh, I hate that. I'm sorry. I hope you get to feeling better. Yeah, that sucks. Do feel better. And whenever you feel better, if you want to come up and hang out, you can. Yeah, so the guest box is open. I see we got some people in here, so the guest box is open. If anybody has a spooky story, if you want to come up and hang out in the box, anybody wants to co-pilot. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine, Chris. Just whenever. You don't have to. It's just whenever if you want to. Okay, cool. Yeah, you've got the band hammer, so you can put the smackdown on the unrulies. You missed it last night, Chris. It was wild in here. Holy cow, it was insane. You guys tap the screen, interact with the live. Let's get some folks in here to tell us some scary stories. We had some pretty good ones last night. I'm still thinking about the Bigfoot story. I can't remember the username. The person who came in and told it was such a good storyteller. I hope that person comes back tonight. That was super cool. How's everyone doing with their weather? The weather here in Kentucky is so nice. It's crazy. It's like spring has sprung for some odd reason. This is actually our winter month in Kentucky. We usually have winter for 2 months out of the year, January and February. The rest of the year is mostly mild, with the exception of the summer months. But I don't know what's going on around the country. Maybe still some snowstorms and stuff. Yeah, Chris, it was crazy. We had 300 people pretty much the entire time, and it was just there were so many guests, I couldn't get to them all. I was trying so hard, and I couldn't get them. All right, looks like we got a person.
Yes, me.
Hello and welcome.
Say hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. How are you? Everything good? This is crazy. I've never been on a live before.
Oh, really? Do you have a spooky story for us?
Yes, I do. Real quick. So it was a long time ago. It was me and four of my friends. We were in a car, and we were at the bottom of a street, and we saw a person walking towards us. And we thought it was kind of strange because he was like really tall, like abnormally tall, like 7 feet plus. And he was walking really slow. And it took him like what should have been only like a 2-minute walk, like 10 minutes. And he had a cane, he had a fedora, and he had a long trench coat. And when he finally got to our car, we thought he was just going to walk by. And then he stopped, stuck his hands in the window, grabbed my friend. And then when we went to go leave, we had only gone like probably 10 feet, and we turned around and he was gone.
Wow. So, a ghost? I thought this was going in the Bigfoot direction,
No,
but
it was in the city. It was just like a
yeah.
strange, like, I don't know if it was a humanoid or what.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Is that the only thing you've ever experienced like that?
kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's pretty cool.
Oh my God. All right.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thanks
good
for
one.
coming up and sharing your story.
Yeah, thanks.
And we have another. All right.
Matt. Did you take
Hello
your
and welcome. Hi. Hello.
Hello.
You're on the air with Spooky Stories.
I was hoping my daughter would get her medicine. She couldn't find it. And I was like, ugh, I didn't even know it was one. Sorry. So I do have a really, really freaky story to tell you.
All right. Let's hear it.
Okay. So it was the night of it was like, I guess in the morning, early morning of my birthday. I ended up staying up really late, just on my phone. I couldn't sleep. And I was just kind of scrolling, and I guess I was just staring at my screen. And I thought, it was like 4:30 in the morning, and I looked up and I saw my husband, and he was like, it's like he walked out from like the hallway looking straight into the living room. And I looked at him and I was like, oh, like he's going to be wondering what I'm up on my phone at 4:30 in the morning. Like, that's crazy. And it's like when he walked out, he was shocked to see me up. And I was shocked to kind of see him up, like walking at 4:30 in the morning across. And he just kind of like hesitant on walking on across. And then he just went on across. He just walked. And it's like, I was trying to focus on him. And it was just like, every time I try to focus on him, he went step on like a few more steps ahead of me. Like I could never focus. Like he just kind of went across. And I was like, that's weird. Kind of like on the movie Twilight or something, like how the vampires were like, I just tried to focus and I couldn't get it. So I was like, okay, he walked on into the front living room, and it makes a circle into the dining room, to the kitchen, to back into the den. And he never did come back around. And I was like, what is going on? And then I kind of got this weird feeling. I'm like, I don't think that might have been my husband. And I waited for a second and I was like, oh my gosh, I just had this really, really bad feeling about it. And so I got up. I was like, I've got to go back to the bedroom to see if so I looked into the dining room, I looked in the kitchen, and nobody was there. I go back to the bedroom where he was at, and he was full-blown snoring, was in a deep sleep, was not him. So to this day, and it was like it was him. He wasn't clear. He wasn't like see-through, like a ghost you see in the movies. It was like full-blown flesh. Like I seen a figure, and it looked like him, but I don't know what it was. I don't know what happened, but I made fun of him actually a year and a half earlier. He said that he's seen one night, and he thought that I had walked in the bedroom into the bathroom, master bath, and then he said that he happened to look up, and it was an old woman. Like he said, she looked like she was like 80 or 90 years old. And she kind of just walked really slow and didn't even look at him, just looked straight ahead. And then he's like, I tried to turn on the light. And by the time I got the light on, like she was gone. And all my girls and I made fun of him for that, like kind of teased him and joked around. And then here, like a year and a half later, I see this full blown body apparition figure walk across at 4:30 in the morning, staring at me. But it was like he knew me. It's like he was as shocked as I was to see him up at 4. Like he was shocked to see that I was awake and that I could see him. I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah, I've heard of a lot of incidents like that actually. It's kind of a common paranormal thing. But yeah, it is startling when you experience something like that, for sure.
It was it was it was really, really, I don't know. I've never had anything like that happen. And honestly, I wouldn't want to happen. I do not want it to happen again because
Yeah.
it was it was something I would not want to go through again because I could not sleep and I was scared from that point on that night that I'm going to see this man walk across. But um I don't know. I mean, like I've had um like voice like where you could record on your phone. I've heard voices that were, that was talking. And then I kind of quit dabbling with that because I was like, the more you kind of mess with that, you might make it even more stronger.
Yeah, we were talking about that last night too, because like the more attention you pay to paranormal things,
Hmm.
the more active they seem to become. Yeah, actually, my sister, when I was a kid, she's a lot older than I am. She lived in this place where frequently people would see someone walk through her house, and I don't think I ever saw it. I was probably too young, but she saw it. My mom saw it. Her husband saw it, and it was just like a person. And so it kind of became a joke, like like, oh, that's the random guy that lives here. But of course, it was not a person. It was just like a shadow that would walk through the house. And um, so yeah, and I've had like a similar experience. So yeah, it's something that happens and it's super weird. And it's like, what is this? Is this residual? Maybe it could be like a residual haunting.
Right.
Could be like a doppelganger type thing. Who knows?
Well, I I seen I watched a video of this woman and she's like, look, I'm a RN. I've been an RN for so many years. I'm not crazy. I don't take any meds. I don't either, just for the for the record. But she said that the same thing that happened to me, she said that she went to her bed, her and her husband were in bed and they heard a bunch of noise in their house, like someone was messing around in their living room. And she said that she told her husband, she's like, someone is in the house. And she's trying to wake him up and he's like, couldn't really get awake or whatever. And so she she gets up to go check because she was worried because her daughter was down the hall. And so she gets up to check things out. And as she walked out of their bedroom, checked on her daughter was fine. And then when she came back, she runs into her husband. And she's like, what are you doing? I just asked you to get up and did you go check on that? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. What are you? And she's like, you were just in the bed. You were just in the bed with me. And he was like, what do you mean? And like, he's like, I just got, I just got home from work. She's like, no, it's you're not off. You're home. And like, and so they go to walk in the bedroom together and she walks in and there is her husband sitting, laying in the bed, like she said. And then she turns around to look at the guy that was her actual husband that she just talked to, and he disappeared. So I don't know if that's
Yeah,
something that, because
yeah.
this
I've
guy
like I
was like
said,
my
I've
husband too.
yeah. It's weird. It's like, are they trying to mimic just to get your attention? I mean, it's definitely something that happens, and a lot of people have a similar experience. Pretty
Or a
crazy.
glitch in the matrix or something.
It could be, I hear a lot of people talking about that nowadays, and it kind of makes some sense, like could be something to do with that.
I don't know. I don't know, but there's something out there that really is like a whole nother world that we might not even be aware of, but It happens.
Yeah,
So that was my
exactly.
story. I have others, but that was the main one that affected me and my husband, and of course, like the voices and stuff. But I think the more you bring attention to it, the stronger it gets. So I would recommend anybody not to even try to, because I think sometimes when we talk like that to things, those are actually probably not even spirit. Those are demons, honestly.
Yeah, they, with the seeing like similar looking like doppelganger, I hesitate to call them that, but I always kind of wonder, like, you mentioned the like the, what do they call it? Like string theory and alternate realities and stuff like that. Like, what if it's just some type of weird, us from like the future, or like a, like you said, a glitch. I don't know. It's just weird because it's like, why would a paranormal entity try to look like someone? I don't know,
And
but
why
yeah,
would he
super cool
pause? Why would he
story.
stare at me? Yeah, like why would he even be like, like he paused, like he walked out, like, oh, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing up? Like, and I was like, he's gonna think,
Yeah.
what am I doing up? Like, am I like I'm sneaking on my phone or something? Like what is she doing? What's she up on her phone at 4:30 in the morning? And
Yeah.
it wasn't him, girl.
Well, thank you so much for coming up and telling us that. That's pretty spooky.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. You have a good night.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye. I saw a question. Where did it go? In the comments? Somebody said that they were invited to the live. I don't know who you were. I can't find the comment now. But if you're still here, I didn't invite you, but I'm glad you're here. Welcome. I didn't invite anybody though. Um, so that's kind of weird. A friend from the other side. Yeah, it's so weird. I don't know. For years, the whole glitch in the matrix thing. I don't even know what to really refer to this as, this trope, but it was not really a thing in the paranormal until in the last decade or so, and it seems like it makes so much sense. Like, what if some type of time loop is bleeding through into our reality? I don't know. Super weird. Did we have another person? I thought we did. Yes, we do. Hello and welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Um, my name's Meg, by the way. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I just gave
I'm
you
Sarah, by the way. I
great to
forget
meet
that people
you.
don't know that.
Yeah, you actually just came across my For You page. Um, so yeah, I have a few. I'm not gonna hold the too much space or anything like that, but so psychicness and that kind of thing runs in my family. My great grandfather was a spiritualist, and so he passed down, I never knew him, but to my grandfather he passed down some knowledge. And so my grandfather knew how to use a Ouija board and knew how to use it correctly. This story actually sounds like so unbelievable and out there, but that's okay. So because my grandfather knew how to use the Ouija board, he would put salt around it and I think like a green tourmaline or something of the sort in there for protection. My cousin, none of us would have our hands on the Ouija board. My cousin would put her hands above the Ouija board and it would turn in a circle and the spirit would enter her body. I'm not telling anyone in here to use a Ouija board. If anything, my grandfather always told me, like, you don't know how to use it, like, don't touch a Ouija board. But anyways, so she would put her hands above and a spirit would enter her body. I was young when this happened. If I would have been the age that I'm at now, I would have asked the spirit so many different questions. Like, I feel like my family kept it very, like, matter of fact. Like, I would have been like, what's the meaning? What is all this? And so the spirit would enter my cousin's body and she would even talk different. Like she would have this accent that you cannot replicate. And anytime my cousin needed to use the restroom, she would have to say, the girl needs to use the restroom. Like she couldn't use the restroom for her. And I was pretty young, but some things that stuck out for me was she had told us one time that there was going to be a car accident. She didn't tell us who it was going to be or anything like that, but that it was going to be young children, and that happened. And then when we did it the next week, she had said that the light was mad at her for telling us that there was going to be an accident that happened. And she would also say things like, oh, like on Sunday, like we go and visit the light. She would always call it the light. And so, like, to me, seeing that with my eyes, and again, it sounds very unbelievable, like for people hearing it, like, oh, sure, spirits entered your cousin's body. Okay. But like, it's totally true. And like the things that she had said to me from a young age was such solid evidence of an afterlife. So I never questioned it because I seen that hard evidence right in front of me. And then this one night, this was years down the line, my mom and my grandfather had passed by then, and I had fallen on some hard times in my early 20s, and I moved back in with my mom, and I was on the couch sleeping, and it was on the Day of the Dead of all days, and all of a sudden I could feel the energy shift in the room. Like it's like anyone who's experienced a paranormal like thing occur, like they know that shift, that kind of feeling, that sort of like something's going on here. So I felt that energy shift, and then on top of the wall, I could see people dancing. Like I could see people like swinging someone around. It was like shadow figures. I could hear a radio turning. It would turn to like Polish music and then it would turn somewhere else. There was no radio on anywhere. Me and my mom don't have like the greatest relationship, but I went and got in her bed. I did. I said, I'm scared. I was like 20 something years old. I crawled in my mom's bed and I woke her up. And then she was like, I feel it too. Because again, like when you have that energy around you, when you can feel that potent energy, it's like, it's just undescribable. And so it was crazy because we would hear the radio change and it wasn't bad. It wasn't like they were terrorizing us or they were like, whatever. It was spooky to me, but at the same time I wasn't like scared. But then all of a suddenly it just turned off. It was like a switch. It was like they all left at the same time, and then the energy like was, good again. But I slept in my mom's bed for months after that. I was scared shitless. That was really scary.
Yeah, that sounds really scary. So, like, with the spirit entering, I have so many questions about that.
Please,
Like,
yes.
was it, did she remember?
Okay.
Like, was she out of control? Was it like she was asleep when she was
So it was like she was
occupied?
asleep. So when that happened, her eyes would close and it was like she was asleep, and then she would open her eyes and be Debbie, the woman. And then her voice would change. It would be this completely like it's an like you can't replicate the accent, and two, the things that she knew were such out there outlandish things that it was like so crazy. And to I think my cousin has some trauma about it because my grandfather, like, he didn't like make her do it, but like she was like a 17-year-old girl, and to have a spirit like enter your body, like that's huge. So I've tried to get, I guess there was like tapes, like back then it wasn't like VCR tapes, but it was like tapes that you put in the tape player. And I asked my grandma and she's like, she has them, which was my cousin. But I've asked her previously because what I really wanted to know was, where did she go? Like, I know that her eyes were closed when it happened, but what did it look like? Was it space? Were you in heaven? Were you in an in-between phase? Did you feel like you're sleeping? Where were you when that would happen? So I have so many more questions, and I did like try to ask her the one day, and she was kind of like, no, I'm not talking about it. So I do think there's a little bit of trauma there from that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't even begin to imagine what that would be like.
I wouldn't. I totally wouldn't, because I feel like, I don't know, what if they didn't, because the one time too, she didn't fully come out of her body. And I guess when she went downstairs, her mom was eating popcorn and she grabbed the popcorn out of her hand. She was like, give me that. And then they had to like actually fully take her out of the body. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
Um, One super quick last thing. I dreamt, so I had an experience with aliens as well. I know I sound like absolutely crazy and out there. It's super fast though. So one time when I was also going through, it seems to be that these things kind of come in difficult times in my life. Like when my dad passed away, he showed himself as a blue orb to me. But in this difficult time in my life, I had a dream that was not a dream. Like it was a lucid dream, but I can't even describe it as that because it was really real. And like I could see myself sleeping on my couch, but I was outside of my window and my alien family had came to visit me, and I knew they were my family because they felt like family. They felt very loving, they felt very kind. And it felt like I hadn't seen them in forever, and they communicated telepathically, and I could still see myself sleeping because I lived in a basement apartment. I felt myself sleeping on the couch in the basement, and then here's my alien family, and again, they didn't say anything, but just come through with a lot of love and understanding. Oh, thank you for saying that. I'm like, I don't want to talk too much, it'd be like, okay, come on, lady, let's go. But yeah, so my alien family, yes.
Yeah, no, you're fine. So what kind of aliens are we talking here? Like, do you know what they look like? Did they look like people or
So the best way, because I looked up the different types and things like that, and none of them necessarily, like I guess on Andromedian, I think it's called, or something like that. They looked like a typical alien. Like they looked like the ones, like where like that, but different. I guess you could say
like grays?
yeah, yes. But they were very loving. There was nothing about them that made me afraid of them. There was nothing about them that made me feel fearful. Not for a split second was I like, oh my gosh, I'm scared. It was, oh my gosh, this is such love. This is such compassion. I love this feeling. It was a very beautiful moment.
Hmm. Yeah, I've always kind of thought that, if we ever do get to meet extraterrestrials, we really, besides Hollywood movies, we don't have a reason to think that they are necessarily malicious in
Right.
nature. Because realistically, they're entities that evolved on another planet the same way we did, and maybe that's where we came from. Maybe they brought us here and dropped us off at some point in time and let us evolve into whatever it is we are now. Who
Right.
knows?
Yeah, that's how I
Um,
feel too. It's like, who knows?
Yeah. Well, that is super interesting, super cool.
Yeah, thank you for letting me the space. Sorry if I took a long time.
Oh,
I
you're fine. You're fine. Come back anytime if you have any other stories you want to share.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night. All right. Wow. I love alien stories. Extraterrestrials living in, yeah, I don't know. If I was an ET, I don't think I would want to live there. So just, my gut feeling is probably no. I think they all live in mine shafts in Kentucky. Just, that's just my hot take on alien life, ultra terrestrials, if you will. Hello and welcome.
Hello.
You got a spooky story for us?
Yes, I do.
Awesome.
Um, so let's see, where do I start? So I live with a friend of mine, and give me 1 second, put my phone on the charger.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, so I live with a friend of mine, and I've lived with him since 2012. From what I know about him and his family, they used to live here. His dad died in his bedroom when he was in college of a heart attack. But the weird thing is, his dad was healthy as a horse. Like, he drank very rarely, he didn't smoke or anything like that. So for him to just die out of nowhere with the heart attack was very weird. And then his mom eventually moved out and got a place of her own with her friend. And then my friend had started dating after, like, close towards his graduation of college. And he had a girlfriend. And he told me that one night, him and his girlfriend were sleeping in the bed. And his room's like really super dark at night, except for his nightlight that's on the alarm clock. And he told me that every night she would come home from work, she would go in and she'd like look at him and he'd be like, "What?" And she'd be like, why are you at the window all the time when I come home from work? And he goes, what are you talking about? She goes, well, it was you. He goes, no, because he wears those white TV necks. And he goes, no, I wasn't at the window. She's like, well, you're there every time I come home. Are you like looking for me to come home? And he goes, no, it wasn't me. So then later in the month, they were sleeping and he woke up to her like punching him in the chest and screaming. And she's like curled up in a fetal position. He's like, what? And of course, he can't see because the bedroom's dark. So he goes to jump it out of the bed. He's like on defense mode. He turns on the light, thinking someone's in the room. And he looks at her, and she's like pale white and crying her eyes out. And he said that she couldn't speak, so he had to take her out of the bedroom, take her downstairs, take her outside to like get some fresh air. And when she calmed down, she says, I don't ever want to sleep in that bedroom again. And he goes, why? She goes, there was this tall figure. It was leaning over you and it had horns. And I went to open my eyes because I thought I heard something. And it was leaning over you and it looked at me. It stood back up like as if you're leaning over, but you like to go to stand up kind of thing. And it walked around to the bed to my side. Now, the reason I tell you this is because, what was it, 3 years ago? Now, you know how like you're in a bedroom or a bathroom and the door's closed and you live long enough with somebody that you know their presence and you know that they're on the other side of the door? Well, I'm going to the bathroom and my friend likes to scare me when I come out of the bathroom. He likes to hide around the corner. And when I come out of the bathroom, he scares the shit out of me. So I'm going to the bathroom and I felt like his presence was on the other side of the door because he's very quiet and sneaky. And at this point, I was like, okay, when I get done going to the bathroom, he's going to be out. So I got to figure out what to do. So I got done. I opened the door. I looked in the mirror because the bathroom mirror can view, if you look in the bathroom mirror, you can see a bit of the kitchen. And I didn't see his shadow because the kitchen light was on. So if you're in the kitchen, you can see the shadow of the person in the kitchen from the bathroom mirror. And I'm like, okay, he's not in the kitchen, so he must be around the corner in the mudroom. And I went to grab the toilet brush, and I'm thinking in my head that if I do this, he'll think it's funny and be like, well, what is she doing? Like, what's going on here? Why is there a toilet brush sticking out of the bathroom doorway? So I did it, and I started laughing. And after a while, I stopped laughing because I'm like, okay, well, he's really good at this now, so I guess I'm going to get scared either way. So I turn off the light, I put the toilet brush back, and I go to close the door behind me, and I went to look forward towards the living room and the front door. For some reason, out of the peripheral vision of my eye, I saw something, and I got kind of startled. And I went to look into the mudroom, and it was my friend standing there. But he looked a little different. Like, he looked a little younger than what he looks like because he's like 46 and I'm 32. But when I met him, he was like 35. And he looked like he did when I met him, except his hair was the same color as it is now because he's going a little salt and pepper on him. And he's gotten a little paler. And he was wearing his shirt that he wore that day, and he had his jeans on, and he had socks on, but he didn't have his sneakers. And I'm like looking at him, and he's just looking at me with a blank stare on his face. And I'm like, Mike. And he looks at me, dead stare on his face, just blank expression. And I called him his name. I was like, what are you doing? I was like, Mike, are you okay? Mike, what's the matter? Mike, why are you standing there? What is going on? He didn't answer and kept that whole composure. And I'm standing there and I'm trying to comprehend what's going on. The next thing I know is his movement was totally off. Like, he looked at me but kind of semi-turned his body and like turned his head finally. and he went to walk out. Now, when you walk out the back door, you hear the first door open. It's very noisy and squeaky. And then you hear the second door to go out into the driveway. And you always hear that because it scrapes against the pavement. And I'm still standing in place like, what the hell is going on? I'm still trying to comprehend this. And I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't even hear him go out the back door. So maybe he's still in the mudroom. So maybe at this time he's hiding on, because there's a freezer. So when you walk through the doorway, there's a freezer to your left. So he could easily hide on the other side. I was like, okay, now he's really getting me. Okay, he's going to scare me. I was like, Mike, this isn't funny. I'm not playing this game no more. And I was like, I went to go and try and scare him, hoping he wouldn't expect me to like pop out. So I went to go and try and scare him, and he wasn't on the other side of the freezer. And I'm like, what the hell? So I'm like, okay. So I went to the kitchen. His phone is on the kitchen table. His keys are on the kitchen table. His wallet's on his kitchen table. He never leaves without any of those things. So I'm like, okay, now at this point, I'm scared. So I grab a flashlight, and mind you, it's like 12:30 a.m. Now my backyard goes all the way to the highway, and I live in the middle of nowhere, so it's pitch black. And I live in a small little town that was built by the Quakers way back. So like we have neighbors, but they're a little far apart, and our backyard goes all the way to the highway that was just put in before I moved in. And so I grab a flashlight and I go and I look around the driveway. I don't see him. I went to look around the backyard, didn't see him. I looked down the driveway. I looked around the front yard because you can walk around the house and get to the backyard again. So I'm like, okay, I don't see him anywhere. So I was like, I don't think he would have walked all the way into the backyard like this, especially with no flashlight. So I'm like, okay. So I walked and I didn't see him in the backyard, and I kept hearing noises, but I was scared to go any further. So I turned around. The shed door was open, which wasn't open that day because I was doing yard work. So I went to look inside. He wasn't in there, so I shut the door. So at this point, I'm tearing up and trying not to cry. So I go back and I get into the house and I turn the back porch light off and the floodlight off, and I turn off the mudroom. I take my shoes off and I lock the door. And I'm like, okay. I'm thinking to myself, maybe he went around the house and I didn't catch him quick enough, and he was waiting for me to leave before he came through the front door. But I'm like, the front door's locked, so there's no way he could have done it. So I'm like, okay. So I walk into the living room and he comes down the steps from I hear his bedroom door. And at this time I'm about to pee myself because I'm like, wait a minute, who's in the house now? And he comes down the steps to get coffee and he looks at me. He said my face went so white. It was like Elmer's glue. And I'm already white, but like I went Elmer's glue white. And I about passed out, and he ran down the steps and caught my arm before I could hit my head on the floor. And he sat me on the couch, and I started bawling my eyes out. He's like, what's the matter? What is going on? He's like, he's like, I don't understand what is going on. Are you okay? And I'm trying to tell him. He's like, just calm down. He gave me a cigarette. I'm smoking the cigarette, and I go to explain to him what happened. He goes, Tony, he goes, I was in my bedroom the whole entire time playing World of Warcraft with my friends online.
Yeah, so that's actually kind of similar to one of the stories we had in here a little bit earlier. I don't know if you were here, but yeah, that's pretty crazy.
It was. And I was like, I know that when people die, I know that sometimes you might see their spirit or whatever, and it's just them being like, hey, listen, everything's okay. I'm not here on this earth no more. Like, I know that happens, but when I saw that, I'm like, did he die? Like, did he die somewhere in the house? Like, that was my first thought after all that. And I'm thinking to myself, like, maybe he died, or maybe he's just playing this game on me. And then, and before that, I always heard him call my name when he should have been at work. Like, I'd be asleep in my bedroom, and I would hear my name and it's like him, and sometimes it'd be like Tony, like it's a question, like Tony, where are you, kind of Tony. Sometimes it'd be a stern Tony, like Tony. Sometimes it'd be like Tony, and then usually at that point, if I don't answer, he'll come upstairs to see what I'm doing, but I never heard him come upstairs. And then another time, I was talking to my friend on the phone while I was doing dishes. And then I got done doing the dishes and I told my friend I had to go because I had to go take a shower. And I went to go upstairs. I got out of the shower and something happened. I forget what happened, but I wanted to get a hold of him. But I didn't hear him in the house, which was weird because usually I'll hear him from the other side of the bathroom wall playing World of Warcraft because the wall's so thin in the bathroom. So I was like, okay, I don't hear him. I didn't hear him leave because usually you can hear the steps from the other side of the bathroom wall while you're in the shower. I didn't hear any of that. So I went downstairs to go tell him something, and I didn't hear anything. The house was dead silent. So I went upstairs, I got dressed, I walked into his bedroom. He wasn't in his bedroom. And I'm sitting there, I'm calling his name. And at this point, I went to the third floor. He's not on the third floor. I'm running around the house looking for him. I even checked the basement and the crawl space in the basement. And I'm like, I started crying because his stuff was here. And I was like, where is he? And then I went downstairs and I sat on the couch and I put my head in my hands and I'm sobbing. And he comes down the stairs and I went pale white and I passed out. And he brought me, when I came to, he's like, what is going on? I was like, I went through the house looking for you and you weren't anywhere. He said, Tony, you came into my bedroom and you kept calling my name and I kept telling you that I was right here, what's going on? And then you left my bedroom and you started running around the house and then you were screaming my name and then you started crying and having a mental breakdown because I wasn't in the house. So you thought, and I kept telling you I was right here and you just looked past me like I wasn't here.
Wow. Pretty strange.
Yep. So, and then there's another time I was about 13, I was 12 years old. We moved into this old Victorian home and I cleaned the attic one day and I always saw this woman. She was in a blue old Victorian dress. This house was built by two brothers. They lived in the backyard in a tent until they could get the house built. And they built it for their family and they had some maids and stuff like that. They got the house built and what was it? Oh, I found the picture of the two brothers, their wives, and their children in the old vehicle that you crank up in the front to get it to go, and then their two butlers on both sides. And I was like, I didn't think anything of it. And we hung it up on the wall. And then one day I was sleeping and I woke up the next day and my sisters found the mirror that hung above her head was on the floor, leaned against her bed on the side. And my step-parents thought it was me because they found fingerprints on the other side because it was dusty and there were fingerprints. And they thought it was me. They're like, Tony, if you did this, you need to let us know because if you snuck into their room for whatever reason, we need to know. I said it wasn't me. So they took a camera the next night and they put it on night vision, recorded the whole night, and they went back to look at the camera. Nothing happened. So they took my fingers and they went to match it up to the prints and it was the same shape as my fingers and I swore up and down it wasn't me. And I kept telling them it wasn't me. The next night I went to go to the bathroom and it looked like there was this weird figure, like this black figure kind of crouched in a crouch position on the sink counter, the counter of the sink. And it was like wearing I saw the figure of a cowboy hat on it and it did one leg down, one arm down, and then it went down and I couldn't see it because when you're walking, all you see is the shower, the sink, and then on the other side, nothing. And I ran out, and then it stood up, and I ran out of the bathroom, and I felt like I couldn't run down the steps quick enough. So I threw myself down the steps because I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna make it. Let me just throw myself down there. I'll get down there quicker if I do this. So I did it, and my stepmom turned around. She's like, Tony, what was that? Why'd you just throw yourself down the steps? And I'm crying, and she's like, what's the matter? I was like, there was something in the bathroom. Someone's in the house. Someone's in the bathroom. Something was on the sink counter, and it crouched down, and it got off the sink and stood up. Someone's in the house. So she goes upstairs, and my sister walks out, and she goes, were you in the bathroom messing with your stepsister? And she goes, no, I just got in. I brushed my teeth, and I'm coming out. So they thought I was making stuff up. And then one day we were all at school, and my stepmom was dusting, and she dusted the picture that we hung up of the picture that I found in the attic. And she never noticed it before. But if you look at the picture, the way it was originally built, the front of the house wasn't in the front of the house, it was off to the side. You see a lady in an old Victorian dress with her umbrella, and it goes down and stops at the knee, and the rest of it's not even there.
That's weird.
Yep. So those are my stories.
Well, it sounds like you've had some really strange and interesting experiences. I appreciate you coming up and sharing them with us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Everybody tap the screen, get some likes, get some people, get some more ghost stories. We got a few more guests here. You were next. I have a photographic memory in case you all didn't know.
Hi there.
Hello and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Well,
Do you have a ghost story? Spooky story?
yeah, I was just scrolling by and I happened to pass by your page, and you had the number 6.6K above you, and then and then I saw like that devilish thing behind you, and I thought to myself, what a brave girl. And yes, I do happen to have a story.
Okay.
The thing is that the other day I was sleeping, right? I was between sleeping and awake, and I have a door behind me, and I felt a scratch on the back door. You see the hands of the animal that you have behind you, the devil thing with the hands. It felt like those hands scratching the back door.
Well, this is actually the goat man of Pope Lick. So hopefully you don't have a goat man, but yeah. So
Well,
you were scratched by a paranormal entity?
well, I could hear the scratch in the back door, right? And but I was like half asleep, half awake, and I was like, "Is this happening for real?" So I sort of started awakening slowly, like to make sure, like to know what was going on, and it was still going, and it was still going, but I was awaking like so subtly, like not to scare it. Maybe not scare it away, maybe because I was too scared and I needed to assess the situation. And then as I turned my head, I could see I saw a hand behind the door. It was like the hand was through the hole, grabbing onto the top of the door, onto the door, and scratching the door. And it was a hand just like the one that you have behind you. And as I saw the door, and as I saw the hand, like I was awake already, and I guess it could no longer be around because I was already conscious, and then it just went away. But it was a hand just like the hand of that animal behind you.
Yeah. So Have you ever had any experiences like that before, or is that your only experience?
Uh, well, let me see what other. Well, I do feel in my body all the time, like when they touch me, since like I can feel like when they poke, poke my body and touch my body, since I am meditation too much. No, 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 it's scary, no. I mean, I saw a UFO once. I was having this thought, like I was thinking of something, and what I was thinking about, I happened to look up into the sky, and I just saw like what I was thinking. I saw a drone on the sky with clouds. It was very specific because it was like three dots on one side, three dots on the other side, like horizontally. I mean vertically, like two rows, and and in the middle of the two rows, this was a UFO, and the UFO just did what I was thinking about, which is just dropped. But no, that was my story.
Well, that's interesting. We're a big fan of UFO stories here, so definitely appreciate that. Was that all? Did you have any other stories you wanted to share?
Let me think. Let me think. Let me think. Let me think. No, I think that's the only one that I have scary.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming up.
Okay. I'll come back maybe some other
Thanks. Have a
time.
good night. Oh, I see some Bigfoots in the chat. We got some Bigfoots on the move. Is it Bigfoots or big feet? I mean, big feet, probably. But it just sounds funny to say Bigfoots. Oh, wow. We've got a bunch of people. Okay. 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 We can do this. We can do this. Um, Everybody tap the screen, send some likes. Hello and welcome. Hello? Are you with us? Okay, I don't think this person is connecting, or if they are, maybe they're gone. I'm not sure. If you want to come back, just re-request. I don't know if it didn't connect or what. Um,
Hi, can you hear me?
Hello and welcome. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I wanted to tell, well, I had a few stories when I worked in a nursing home, and
Ooh.
it was late I worked the second shift, and I had put my clients to bed, and there's one room, every time I would go in there, I would feel funny, so I would turn off the lights one at a time till I got to the door, and then I was coming out with the laundry, and I was walking down this long hall, and I saw a lady at the end right by the door to go outside, and we have alarms on the door. So I'm bringing the laundry down, and I said out loud, "Who is that?" And she turned and looked at me, and then she walked to the door, and I went down to the door to see if one of the patients or somebody went out, because I saw it just like a person, to see if one of the patients went out the door, but the alarm never went off, and nobody was right there. There was nobody there at all. So it kind of spooked me on that one. And another one at the nursing home, me and one of the other employees was washing dishes by a window, and I saw a black cloak kind of go by the window down towards the room that I always get scared in. And I asked her, "Did you see that?" And she said yes. And then me and her didn't say anything else after that. But that was one of the stories. So that was just a ghost story.
So, just a quick question. My sister used to work in a facility like that, and she would always have like the craziest paranormal stories, and kind of similar to that. And she used to say that they thought they saw the Grim Reaper there or something akin to it. And then there would be like a passing shortly thereafter every time they would see this entity. Did you have kind of like that type of experience?
Well, I asked the other employees that had worked there for a long time. I described the person that I saw, and they said that was the person that was in the room that used to make me scared all the time. Used to be right by the window in that bed. And they said that's what the person sounded like, my description. But
Yeah.
that person had passed before I started working there.
Hmm.
It was
Yeah,
a
someone in the comments says like angel of death, and yeah, that's kind of what it seems like or sounds
Yeah, and
like.
I had another story. I was living on the base, the military base, and this is my first time ever being away from home. I have a whole bunch of sisters and brothers. So I was on the base with my husband, and he was at work, and I was taking a nap on the couch, and I felt something just standing over me. So I lifted up and looked behind me, and on the stairs, it was a big, tall person with a cloak on. You couldn't see the face, but you knew it was like a male energy. And it kind of scared me. So I tried to scream and nothing would come out. And I saw him about 3 different times. And my sister's friend said she saw him at our house one time, and she had didn't want to spend the night anymore. And then my other sister says she's seen him. So I don't know what that was or what kind of entity or whatever it was. I don't know what that was, but I saw him plain as day. And then
Yeah.
there was one other one. Me and my sisters went down to my aunt's house, and they're kind of Mennonites. So they don't believe in TV or anything like that. No phone. They have a phone for emergencies, but they'd only have radio to listen in case something happened. So we were out there visiting. And at night, we were all me, my 2 sisters, and my cousin were in the room. There were 2 bunk beds, and we were sleeping. I was up on the top, and my other 2 sisters were on the other side, and my cousin was underneath me. My uncle came in, and he was talking about how we were getting so big and that we're growing up too fast and whatever. And then he went out the room. And then all the lights and everything were off. We were going to sleep. And I just happened to look up because they didn't have any curtains over the window because we were out in the country and there's hardly anybody around us. So I looked over to the window and I saw these 2 eyes that looked like goat eyes, but they didn't have any goats. They only had chickens. So I saw that out the window, and I looked down to see if my sisters or anybody else saw what I was seeing, and they were under the covers. Their heads were under the covers. So I put my head under the covers. So this is why we were teenagers. So a few years later, when we were grown up, I was telling somebody else about this story, and my sister said, "Oh, you saw that too?" I saw it. I said, "How come you didn't say anything?" Because I looked to see if you guys were looking. She said, "No, we were under the covers." We got up because they were down low by the window. I was up high and I could see down to the window. It was just really scary. We didn't go back and spend the night at her house anymore after that because they were way out, out nowhere.
Is there like a Bigfoot presence in that area by any chance?
Yes, that was in Northern California.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That was in Northern
Lots
California.
of.
My sister has a story of her and my other sister were coming down from the mountains. They were up there and they were coming down in the snow, and they were with my sister's husband and his brother, and they were driving down, and they saw 3 Bigfoots walking in the snow in front of them. And they pulled over and stopped, and the Bigfoots walked over to the side, and they all were kind of scared and excited, but they had got out to go look at the footprints and everything. And then they got back in the car because I was asking her, I told her to tell my husband about her story about that one. But they all saw it, and I called my other sister to make sure she wasn't telling a fib. And she said, yeah, that's what happened.
Wow. That's awesome. I'm a big fan of Bigfoot here, so I love Bigfoot stories. Well, that
But
is pretty amazing.
yeah,
Wow.
at my aunt's house, we never went outside to see if we saw any footprints out. It was like everything just went blank from our mind the next day, and we just went home. And later on, you started thinking about, you remember it. But when we were there, we didn't remember anything about that because we would have went outside and looked to see what was back there in the daytime.
Hmm.
But that's it. That's all. Thank you for letting me tell you a story, my story.
Yeah. Thank you for coming up. That's super spooky. All right.
I know.
Let's see here. I got you. Wow. Love some Bigfoot stories. Um, okay, Chris. Yeah. When you come back, you better get up here with me. And co-pilot. Get your food and hurry and come back.
Hi.
Hello and welcome.
Hi. Um, I just wanted to share my story. Um, so this happened when I was like I was probably like 18 years old or 19, I'm not really sure. But I had went to like a church camp for it was like old summer church camp that my friend's family owned, like on their ranch. And this place, it definitely hadn't been up and running like it used to. Like I'm sure at one point it was really popular because they had like bunk beds, and it was a big place, and it had like canoes, swings and stuff like that. But at this time, it hadn't been busy. Like you can tell the church camp hadn't been used in years. But every so often they would have some people, come, like little church groups that would go to this camp. And one summer we went. This is probably I've had a few experiences, but this is probably the creepiest one, the most significant one that sticks out to me. So we're there at this church camp, and I have like the pastor there that's speaking something. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't connecting for some reason, and I don't know if it was because I was already having some kind of like attachment or something. I don't know. But it's me and my boyfriend, who's my husband now, my friend Bettina, whose family owns the church camp, and her sister, and then their other friend. I don't even remember his name, but so we're there at this church camp. We're doing, activities. We go canoeing in the afternoon. And this is on the Pecos River. That's in Texas. And we're all canoeing, and we're just playing around out, and we get really tired because we're canoeing is like, it's tiring. So we all decide to go back to the room to like take a nap because we're just worn out from the day, and it's summertime. And the way the room was set up was like, a big room with bunk beds on each side of the walls. So like, and then there was like a big hallway in the middle, which is like, I don't know how to explain that, but the bunk beds were set up against the walls, and there was a hallway, like there was a walkway between all the bunk beds. So my husband is across from me, who was my boyfriend at the time, in the other bunk bed, because the two boys had to sleep on the other side of the room and the girls had to sleep on this side of the room. And I was at the very end of the room, so it was like the last bunk bed. And the whole time I'm there, I'm always been very like sensitive to like spirits, and kind of I've always had those experiences my whole life. But this one in particular just really shook me, and I never even told my friend about it until I was about 30 years old. I'm 33 now. And so when we come back from canoeing, we take a nap. I'm laying down, my friend's laying in the next bunk bed, and then her sister's in the next bunk bed. The two boys are on the other bunk beds across from us. And so everyone is asleep, and I'm asleep. And I've always been like a very deep dreamer. Like I have very lucid dreams, like very vivid dreams ever since I was young. That's a whole nother story that I could get into, but I'm out of breath talking about this because just talking about it is very scary. So everyone's asleep, and I'm asleep, but I wake up, but I'm still laying there, and I can see everyone asleep, but I'm still asleep. So I don't know if I was having a lucid dream, or if I was just like, I don't really know, but I know I'm asleep. I can see my friend Bettina next to me. I can see my boyfriend across from me sleeping. I can see the other guy sleeping. And I'm looking around the room and I just see this black shadow like coming down and making its way across the bunk beds. Like, it's coming down that long walkway because we were like at the end of the room. So it's coming down and I can't explain it. It wasn't like a shadow, but it was like TV static. Have you ever seen like static, like, what static looks like on an old TV? Like, just, that's the only way I can explain it, was like static moving through the air. And that I just watched it move across, and it kept coming really slowly across the room. And finally, it made its way right above me. And when it made its way right above me, I just woke up like completely. Like I sat up and I saw everyone asleep. And just like I saw this thing moving across while everyone was asleep. And I was asleep, but when I woke up, everyone was still asleep and I was awake. And so that day, everyone woke up and I was like totally shook to like my core. And I ended up getting so sick that I had to leave the camp. I had a fever. It was like I got the flu all of a sudden. And to this day, I don't know if it was like, because I know like there's a lot of Native American stuff there, like in that area. I definitely don't, or it could have been like very demonic. I don't know. But I don't know if it was like something that had attached itself to me. But it was very scary. It was terrifying. And I never told anyone that story. Not even my friend Bettina, whose camp it was, until like just recently. Because it was so real. I mean, I got sick. Like, I had a fever. I was throwing up. Like, that's how bad it was. I had to leave the camp early. And yeah, that's my story. It was super intense.
Yeah. Did anybody else have encounters at this particular location?
I don't know that. And I've asked her, I didn't want to ask her, because I didn't really want to like, because I know that's her family's place. And I thought like, if I said like, hey, maybe this place is haunted, I thought it might offend her. But I just kind of told her my story in maybe hopes that maybe she'd be like, oh yeah, somebody else had this experience there.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those moments where you kind of are like, okay, like there is darkness and there is light, like there is very something, you know what I mean? It was just, no, I mean, I've definitely had a fever. I'm not sure what a fever dream is.
A fever dream is exactly what it sounds like, pretty
What,
much.
what is that?
Like sometimes if you have like a really high fever, you can have hallucinations.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they said fever dream. Somebody else suggested.
Well,
I
but
saw a couple
that's,
of sleep
yeah.
paralysis comments
But see,
too.
that's the
So
thing is like, I mean, it definitely, I guess it could have been, but the thing is like, I've always had very lucid dreams ever since I was little. Like I've had, because I've learned I've had to teach myself to like become awake in my dreams because I had a lot of night terrors as a child. Um, but I was fine that day. Like I wasn't sick. I hadn't been sick at all that day. Like I was fine. And then after this happened, um, and I mean, it could be right, but after this happened, I ended up getting the fever and like getting sick. It wasn't like I had already had a fever. I didn't. I was, you know. But anyway, that's my
yeah.
story.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Bye.
What are y'all talking about the Botany Bay? Are we even allowed to talk about that on TikTok? I don't even know most of the time what we are and aren't allowed to talk about. Every time somebody says basically like the other word for unalive, I'm like, oh, it hurts. Ow, stop saying that. Unfortunately, it comes up a lot when you're talking about the paranormal. And I'm always just thinking like, damn, I'm going to have to reset the live. Ghost sickness, is that a real thing? Uh, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? I don't know. Jer Bear. All right. See what is up with Jer Bear. Hello and welcome.
Hey, what's up? Good evening. I ran into you while I was listening to you yesterday, and I think it was awesome. Like, what a great idea! Listening to people share their ideas, and well, that's that. I mean, I got my stories. So, listen, if you want me to get right down to it, I'm older. I'm 46. I've had many encounters. I've been dealing with these things. I feel like for so long. Um, I just want to say this really quick before I get to my story. It might sound scary, and I questioned myself if I wanted to share it because I don't want to give this thing too much power. But we have power over these things because I came to the conclusion that if they could kill me, they would have, pardon me, if they could unalive me, they would have done that. I know, sorry.
I just talked about
I
this.
know, you are so right. I had a couple drinks. I came to the conclusion if they could unalive me, they would just do that. And so I've done a lot of research, and what they're after is our fear. They're attracted to negative energy, and so I started to fight back, and they adapt actually, and they're very very clever. Um, Listen, I'll get to one story, my main story, and if you want to hear more, I'll get more. Whatever you or anyone else wants. So when I was 8 years old. I was misbehaving. I was a bad kid. I was basically a bad person. I was just a jerk. My mother said, "Well, tonight, an angel's going to come to you and tell you were bad." I don't know why she would say that, okay? But she did. And that night, I got scared at night, and crept into my parents' bedroom, like I always do, to sleep with them, because I was 8 years old. I was scared of the dark, whatever. So as I'm sleeping in between my parents, something did come. And it laughed at me. And I'll never forget the way it sounded. And I can describe that voice to you, and I'll describe it later because I've heard it. Anyways, um, it laughed at me. It called me by name. And it said, it wasn't no angel. I don't think an angel was scaring me. It said, "You've been bad." And it just giggled at me. And I'm in between my parents, and I'm like, oh, crap. Okay, 1 year after that, my parents were separated. And me, my mom, and my sister moved to Los Angeles to live with our grandma because my parents separated. Do you believe it? The stupid thing came to me again, and it laughed, the same hideous voice, and it asked me, "Remember me?" And it laughed at me. I was like, oh my goodness. And that's that story. I was 8 years old at that one, and that one really bothered me. I didn't want to talk about it because I want to give him more strength, but I just want to tell everybody that these things are cowards. The ones that, the bad ones that haunt us, they come to us when we're half asleep because we're in between the realms, and they come to us when we're most vulnerable, and they're just trying to scare the crap out of us. And I'll encourage everybody that when you encounter these things, think about love, think about someone you love, and a prayer. Prayer works too. And I mean, I got other encounters too, and I could talk about it. I don't want to take over your thing, but we have power over these things. They're just trying to scare us. They're after the negative energy that we do that. And that's that. I know it sounds kind of silly, and it's probably much more scary in my mind than the way I describe it to you. But I mean, like the shadow people. Um, man, I remember like finally telling a friend about these things, and this guy told me about it. Like, man, I seen the same thing. And then we had a friend who went to prison, and he wrote a letter, and he was talking about it in his letter. It was just crazy stuff. That stuff's real, you know. But we're more real, you know. Well, that's that. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I feel kind of silly almost talking about it, you know. But I've had so many encounters with these things. I just the other day I had one. I mean, not the other day. I mean, like probably like last time fought one of these things probably like 2 years ago. Um, man, but really quick, you know, I started to fight back, you know, and they adapted. And what they would do was, um, I remember this happened 2 times, but I'll tell you the last time. I'm sleeping, and I felt like these nails or something creeping on my back. And all I could think about is I'm gonna reach back, I'm gonna punch the crap out of these things, you know? And when I reached back, at the last second I remember there was my girlfriend there at the time. And I barely avoided hitting her, but they were like setting me up. Like they wanted me to hit her, you know, in my sleep. And that was just her. It actually happened before that. And I did hit my poor girlfriend at the time in her lower back. So you can't just fight back, like be a brute about it. You gotta be smart, and you gotta pray, and you gotta remember love. And I'll leave it at that. And I'll probably like tune in. I'm gonna tune in the rest of the night, but I'll probably like come back and tell you another story. But I mean, I feel like I can go on and on with these things. Like I've been battling these things for a while, you know. Um, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna shut up and let you get to the next person. Hey, love your show. I think you're understanding. Hey, thanks for everything. Goodbye.
Thanks. Have a good night. Thank you for sharing. Hot dog, we got a bunch of people. Well, we did. Where'd they go? Okay. This box is messing with me. Kind of like messing with Sasquatch, only it's messing with Paranormally Correct. Oh, is it going to connect? Hello? Hello, hello? Well, I believe Nate is asleep. Nate? Yeah, they're asleep. All right, let's see. Do we have. All right. Oh, thank you for the rose. Appreciate that. Um, huh. Interesting. Thank you, Melody. Glad you enjoy the streams. I think tonight's a slow night. Last night was crazy. We had a ton of stories. We've been doing pretty good tonight. We've had pretty much back-to-back stories. Guest box is open if anybody wants to hop in and share a story. Bonus points if it's a Bigfoot story, because those are the best. Those are my favorite. Yeah, someone said something about Kentucky stories. Yeah, it did sound like he was snoring, which is weird because that one actually just popped in. A couple of them disappeared and then that one appeared, so I don't think they had time to fall asleep, but I guess Nate was sleeping, so yeah. Yep, guest box is open if anybody wants to come up and share a paranormal story. You guys tap the screen, interact with the live, comment, share, whatever other buttons you could push. Pick me. Claire, send a request. There should be like a little pink and blue person down at the bottom of your screen. You can tap on that. I'm actually not sure what it looks like. I'm just guessing because I have never been on the opposite end of this. I've never been a guest on anybody's stream. Unfortunately, I would like to, but I haven't been. So I don't really know for sure what you do, but I think that's what you do. In Kentucky, you just say, "Oh, no, come on up." You don't have to like listen. This is what I tell people: if you get nervous about coming up, like just take a breath. You can always just disconnect. You don't have to stick around if you get too nervous. But no, we just have a good time here. We just have fun, and Nothing at all to be nervous about. Although I always do get just a little bit nervous before I go live, so it is completely understandable. Yeah, little pink and blue person down at the bottom of the screen if you want to request. Lodge, let me see if I can invite you. I don't know how to invite you. Invite? No, I guess I can't. Oh, there we go. Cat Mama. Oh, my cats are going to start yodeling. It's that time of the night.
Can you hear me?
Hello? Yes, I can.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, let me just say hi to Down the Rabbit Hole. He's a very good YouTuber. Everyone go follow him. I have paranormal stories to share. I'm gonna just get right into it, and here we go. So, I've never had any experiences when I was a child, other than seeing lights in the sky when I was a teenager, but I'm going to focus more on the ghost stories that has happened in my life. But the first time I ever saw something like ghostly, I was at a park with my friend and her daughter, and this park is on a big plot of land, and there's a big old Victorian mansion on the land that the park department uses as offices now. It's a three-story mansion, three-story big beautiful Victorian mansion. It's the afternoon. We went to go, see the ducks, and then we were walking back towards the car, and I just happened to look up at the mansion, like on the third floor. Like the first two stories of the mansion are the offices, and I guess they don't use the third floor. But I saw a face in the window, and it looked like, I'm gonna age myself, but it looked like the marionette puppet Madam from back in the 80s, but it was it was in a jester costume, but it looked like the Madam puppet from the 80s, only wearing a jester costume. So I'm walking, and my friend and her daughter are walking ahead of me, and my friend's like, "Did you see that?" And I said, "Yeah, the face in the window." My friend saw it too. Like, it popped up in the window and then it was gone. So we had to do some investigating, and like I said, it was an old Victorian mansion. It had been around since the early 1900s, and it changed a couple of hands. It used to be a resort back in the 1900s. Then, it became a orphanage, and it changed a couple of hands. At one point, I think it was a private home, but that was the first time I ever saw and I think it was residual energy, because if it used to be an orphanage, then it's probably the residual energy of the children that used to live there. But that was the first time I ever saw anything like that. Excuse me, I'm recovering from a cold, but the second time I saw something, this happened in 2019. I was dating this guy, and I literally met him a year after his significant other passed away. So we start dating, and one night we went out, we went to the casino, we got lit, we came home to sleep it off, right? I slept over his house and we're in the bed sleeping. Now, it must have been 2, 3 in the morning, and I was still a little drunk. But when you wake up and you're half awake and half asleep? So I woke up half awake, half asleep, and I just happened to look at the end of the bed, and I see this woman standing there. And I automatically knew who the hell it was. It was his dead significant other. I knew it was. I didn't even have to I just knew it. So I'm like, oh, that's strange. And I went back to sleep because, again, I'm still kind of drunk. So I never told him about that until later in our relationship because he showed me a picture of her. And I said to her, I saw her. I told him about what happened. I said she came to me the night we went to the casino. She was at the end of the bed, right? And like I automatically knew it was her because the lady had short brown hair. And then when he showed me the picture, that confirmed it that it was her. Apparently she had died in the house, and I was sleeping on her side of the bed. So I said to him, I was like, can you tell her to visit you and not me? Right? So also I've worked in healthcare for 15 years now. And I'm a patient care tech, so when I first started working at my hospital, I had heard stories from other people who worked there longer than me, and then I started seeing things. Like on my floor, if you get out the elevator and make a left-hand turn, we have I call it like a little cul-de-sac. It's like a cul-de-sac of rooms. And we put a lot of the patients that are in hospice because there's like private rooms down there. And apparently, when I first started, one of my coworkers told me that there was a little girl that patients were seeing in their room. And I haven't seen the little girl. Apparently, the little girl haunts the whole entire hospital because we did have a pediatric wing on the lower floor. So my coworker told me that one night her patient rings the bell and says to her, "Can you tell the little girl to get out of my room?" And she's like, "What little girl? What are you talking about?" Right? So apparently this little girl's been seen by a lot of workers there, and I haven't personally seen the little girl, but I've heard stories about other people seeing the little girl and patients seeing the little girl. One time there was it's called a one-to-one. So basically, a tech has to stay right by the bedside of the patient to, protect them for their safety and whatnot. So I had that cul-de-sac as my district, and the aide that was in there was sitting by the patient. So I went and I did what I had to do, and I came back and I saw her sitting outside the room. And I'm like, "Why are you sitting outside the room?" And she's like, "The patient's belongings fell off the window shelf by themselves." Now, mind you, this is one of the private rooms where we put the hospice patients in there. And it happened and she got scared and she's like, "Yeah, I'm not sitting in there." Um, like I said, I've been working in healthcare so long that I see things out of the corner of my eyes, like black shadows. And again, we're not a Catholic hospital, so I know in Catholic hospitals they open the windows so the soul can go, but I don't work in a Catholic hospital, so when people go, they just go. We don't open the windows or anything like that, because at my hospital, the patients would probably try to jump out the window. But
Yeah, that's not good.
but I would see shadows out of the corner of my eye, and the call buttons would go off, and there's no one in the room, and that would happen a lot. So one night it kept going off, and it was one of the private rooms. There was no one in there, and it kept going off. It went off like 3 times. So I went in there. I was like, "Can you please stop ringing the call button?" And it finally stopped. Right. So um, one of the patients I had came up to the nurse's station one night, and he's like, um, "We're like, are you okay?" And he's like, the clock in my room, the hands on the clock are going round and round by itself." And me and my coworker just looked at each other and we're like, "Oh shoot," right? And I didn't even know what to tell this man. Like, I couldn't even say anything to him because I know what the hell he's talking about, right? Um, I've had other coworkers who would have to sit by the patient doing the one-to-one say that they're in the room and it's really dark and they see like a dark, really dark figure like in the room with them. And two of my coworkers, they kind of got a little sick because of that. Like one got really nauseous and she like threw up, and another one said like she was in the room with the patient. The patient was sleeping. The patient had the television on. She's sitting there watching the patient, and like the black mass like went past the television and kind of blacked out the television for a little bit, like that. And then like I actually saw a, a apparition. Um, I went into a room one night, and of course it's the witching hour. I work night shift, mind you, right? So it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and my patient had a JP drain, which if anyone doesn't know what that is, it's like just a drain that drains the blood out of your, like when you have surgery and stuff like that. So it gets full, and then we have to empty it and measure it and everything like that. So it was two like older ladies, and I went in the room. I didn't turn the light on because I wanted them to just sleep. They were sleeping. I went to the lady who had the JP drain and I emptied it. I go into the bathroom and excuse me, I bent down to pour the blood in the toilet and flush it down the toilet. And as I came back up, I'm staring in the mirror, and behind me, I see a little old person walking into the room. They had gray hair. They were wearing our hospital gown. And you know how old people shuffle when they walk? They were shuffling into
Yeah.
the room. Now that's the first time I ever actually saw like a full apparition, and I wasn't scared. I was just more in awe that I was able to see it.
Hmm.
And I just want to that those are my stories. I haven't had any experiences since then, but those are my story, and thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say one thing that we used to do because I was a ghost hunter for a long time is anytime we would have a place where we thought there were child spirits, we'd take like toys and put them out and see if they mess with them.
Good idea.
And still to this day, if I go on an investigation, I like to take like a cat ball with a jingle bell in it because you can hear it,
Yeah.
even if you can't see it, you can hear it move. You should take a ball or something and
I
lay
was
it in
about
the
to say,
floor
yeah,
and see if like tell them like I'm going to put this here for you, and if you feel like you want to play with it you can play with it, and see if you get any type of response. That
yeah.
would be really interesting.
That's a good idea. I'll have to try that.
Yeah, definitely. If you do try it and it works, you got to come back and tell us about it.
Thank you for letting me share. I want to hear everyone else's story, so I'm going to head down. But thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you. I love doing that, by the way, like trying to think of out of the box things to do on paranormal investigations. Yeah, I'm a ghost hunter. I don't do it so much anymore because a lot of people aren't really like into it, it seems like. So it's hard to find an investigation, but yeah, I've been a ghost hunter since like 2008, I think is when I officially started ghost hunting. Hello, Lodge Tales.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'd like to share a couple of more, I don't know, I guess out there Bigfoot stories, and maybe some
Yeah.
little people stories and some owl stories.
Okay.
So let me start with the Bigfoot one. Okay, I ain't gonna tell everybody where this place is, but this story comes from an elder in our tribe. Um, So there's these hills that are kind of sacred to us on the Blackfeet Reservation, but these hills are not located on our reservation. Anyways, a while back, I want to say before even any outsiders came onto our territory, there was these Blackfeet that were at those hills. They would fast there a lot. And, people call them vision quests, whatever. We call it fasting. And they were up there fasting while they were messing around, like going to go up on one of those hills to fast. And they stumbled upon this portal to this cave. So they crawl in there, and the only way in there is to crawl on your belly to get way, they were curious, so they crawled back in there. And when they did, they got into this area that kind of opened up, and they seen this figure. It was dead in there. And they described it as a Bigfoot that was dead inside of this cave. But what it had in its arms, it was clutching what we call a medicine bundle, which those are filled with sacred objects that those spirits give you. They gift them to you so that you can help people and heal and all these things, call in the buffalo for food. And basically it's a bundle of miracles, if I could translate it to anybody that don't understand what they are. And this Sasquatch was clutching it to its chest, but it was dead. It was just a skeleton. And they could see the fur, they could see everything on it. And of course they left it alone. They didn't bother it. But that story comes from that old man on my wife's side of their family. And anyways, I wanted to share that because, like I was saying last night, that Bigfoot's really a spiritual type creature, which is why I think it baffles so many people. Because think about Geronimo, when he couldn't be shot because he had that war shirt, nobody could shoot him. He couldn't die from a bullet. That's one of those gifts, and that's how that Bigfoot is. It's got those gifts like that. It's got different sorts of medicines. Okay, so moving along, this next story is from one of my friends. He used to be a firefighter, a wildland firefighter, and they were fighting this fire down in Idaho. One night he gets up to use the bathroom, and they're all camped here. It's kind of a big camp. He said there was about 1,500 people in that big base camp. And they went back to base camp to rest up before they went back out to fight the fire. Well, as he's out using a bathroom, he just kind of went out past his tents there, and he's kind of going back, behind there. He said there was nothing but devastation everywhere. Everything was burnt. And he seen this deer kind of come running across his view, and he stared at it for a while thinking it was kind of, amazing to see life out there because everything was dead. And he kept looking to where that deer ran from, and he's seen this figure. He says it was about 10 feet tall. He said to him, it looked like it was on all fours, and it was sniffing the air, and it was looking around for something. And he couldn't tell what it was. He was thinking it was a bear. And then it started coming toward him. He noticed it. The Bigfoot noticed him back at some point. And when it did, it started coming toward him. Then it stopped. And it started pawing the ground, he said. As it was pawing the ground, he said he couldn't believe what he was seeing, because there was some big lights back in there, some floodlights, and he could kind of see it. He said that the nose grew long. The ears started getting pointy. He said its legs changed, and then its back changed. He said all of a sudden he's looking at the biggest wolf he's ever seen in his life. And it's coming toward him, and he's so scared he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know if he's going nuts or what, because he's seeing this. And he's standing there just kind of dumbfounded. Then it comes closer, closer, and closer. Then it stops, and the snout goes smaller, kind of sinks back into its face. The ears get rounded. It grows a huge hump on its back. All of a sudden, now he's looking at the biggest bear he's ever seen in his life. And he's to the point where he says, man, I didn't believe in any of this. I didn't know Bigfoot was real. I heard stories, but I didn't think it was real. As it got into that bear shape, it started coming toward him, walking toward him closer. By the time it was 10 feet from him, he was standing there, and he thought to his mind, like, I'm dead for sure. I'm dead. He said, I'm going to die here. I can't even get away. If I wanted to, I should, maybe he was rethinking his life and his decisions at that point. But he said, as it was 10 feet from him, He said, just like that, it stood up and it turned back into that Bigfoot again. By then, he starts screaming, just screaming, hey, somebody come out here, come out here. They're all telling him, I don't want to say his name, but oh, behave, because whatever, they're all trying to sleep. Finally, a couple guys come out, and one of them comes out with a spotlight. But there was 5 people roughly that came out and seen this when the guy had the spotlight on it. They all shined it right on it, and it ran back to where it came from, across that little field and then back up into all that burnt brush. That's the first time I've ever heard of this Bigfoot shape-shifting like that. But I mean, it was the most... This guy that tells the story is also a Bigfoot researcher guy. After that, he turned into that. Because it amazed him so much and he didn't realize that they could do things like that. So anyways, I'll go on to the next story. This one's about little people. So my father-in-law was packing. He had people that hired him to pack them back in the mountains. He had the pack horses, he had all the gear, he had the camping stuff, everything. And he was basically being their camp cook. So they go back into the mountains, and when they get to the place that they're going to camp for the night, he's an old cowboy guy and knows those mountains like the back of his hand. And so he just sleeps on his pack saddle with a little little ranger roll. He just kind of rolls it out, little thing to sleep on right there. And at one point in the middle of the night, he wakes up and he looks around. All of those people that are laying there sleeping, there's these little Indians about 12 inches tall, whole bunch of them, and there's men, women, and children, old people, but they all look like if you took a snapshot from the 1800s, just a bunch of little Indians, and they're looking through people's gear. They're just kind of looking around, like curious. Just then he looks up and he sees one standing right by him, and it has his spur, and it's spinning that rowel. He made his own custom rowels out of silver dollars, because that horse that he was working with, it knew those sharp ones and he wouldn't come near him if he had those sharp ones on. It liked those round ones that wouldn't hurt him. So anyways, he had that little man, that little person had that, and he was spinning it, and he was looking down at him, and my father-in-law looked up, and that little guy said, do you know who we are? He says, I've heard stories about you guys. He said, do you know where we come from? He said, somewhere up in these mountains. And that little person pointed to all of those trees where they were at. He said, you see those trees? There's one of us in each of those trees. That whole time he was spinning that rowel, and he told them, you're going to lose this rowel, right? It's pretty loose. He just kept spinning it. Anyways, he goes back to sleep after a while. I don't remember how he transitions from seeing these to going back to sleep. I don't know that part of the story. I don't remember it. But as he wakes up the next morning, first thing he does is look for his rowel. It's gone. It don't surprise me, because we all know that, those little people, where I'm from, those little people like shiny things. They'll take them from you if you have them. They always do. I don't know why. You go into a sweat, you forget your earrings. They'll take your earrings from you in there too. It's just like that, but I don't know why they like them. So the next little person story comes from my wife. Here's this place on the Blackfeet Res called Old Agency, and there's a man that used to live down there. He passed on. Well, he liked to drink, and they were going down there to drink with him one day, and geez, it must have been it was still daylight out, so it must have been about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and they just pulled up, and they all knew that there's a little person that lives with them there. They all knew it, but they didn't really think anything of it. As they pulled up, that little man was sitting in his windowsill. And as they described him, he was just sitting there, smoking a cigarette, actually. Just sitting there, and this one's dressed like a little cowboy for some reason. Little cowboy. Didn't have a hat, but, little boots, shirt, cowboy pants, all that. And as they pull up, he sees him. He kind of puts out his cigarette really quick, and he jumps off that ledge. Everybody, did you guys see that? Like, yeah. So they walk in that house, And I asked him how I was doing, whatever. So, I'm glad you guys came. He says, I knew you guys were coming. He'd always say stuff like that. Well, I knew you guys were going to be here. And that little man used to tell him if people would show up and everything like that. They're spirits. I don't know why they're small, but yeah, that's what was there living with him. One time they were there, a separate time from this. My wife's cousin, he's kind of a cocky guy, big. He liked to fight a lot. They were just getting ready to leave, and that door opened for him. And he knew it was that little man, and he says, I don't need no help opening the doors, and he slammed that door shut. And he opened it himself. And as soon as he stepped out and started walking, boy, he fell. He fell and he smashed his face so damn bad that they had to take him to the hospital. And they all told him, you shouldn't be doing that to him. It's not good to mess with that little guy. That happens. But that was the one little person down at old agency. Now this next story is my own. So we were out in this place where I seen those Bigfoot along this river, the Two Medicine River, and we were across the river. We had a bonfire built there, and we were all, sipping beer and stuff, and I see lights. We all see lights, car lights coming up that ditch bank road. It's a dirt road it's made a road on one side of an irrigation canal that leads all the way up to that house. Anyways, we see that light, and my aunt said, that must be, your cousin. And I thought, oh good, finally somebody here my age, because they were all older than me. And those lights just parked at this place on the corner. I knew that place where they parked. It's a little, like a sandbar, and they parked right there. I didn't see the lights go anywhere, didn't move, they just turned off. Just then a cop car come rolling by, up the road, shined his spotlight down there, and went back down. Must have just been making his rounds somewhere, tribal police. And he left, and I was wondering, what? I'm gonna go check on my cousin then. So I start walking up there to where that car should have been. And it wasn't there. It was really dark out, quiet. You could hear everything. It was so quiet, dark out. I'm coming back. There was this old bridge that's kind of knocked down. Only one side of it was hanging up. Yeah, the other side caved in. So it's basically just looks like a telephone pole with some old boards hanging off it, kind of over the little irrigation canal there. As I'm walking back down toward that fire, I see this little person standing on that bridge. And what was funny about this one, or I guess kind of interesting, was it was a little person, but it was a shadow little person. It's just a shadow, but I could make out everything on him. I could tell he had these little pants on. They look like old, I don't know how I could tell, but I could see them. It looked like they had those fringes off the side a little bit too. I could tell he didn't have a shirt on. He was slender, and I could see his two braids, but they were tied behind his back, but there was two of them. And as I seen him, he seen me, and he tensed. I tensed too, getting ready to fight or run. I didn't know what to do. I was scared. And as he tensed, I looked at him. It's like he was getting ready to jump off that bridge at any moment if I did anything, made any fast movements. So I continued walking toward him, but I have to pass that part just to get onto that little road that leads back down to that bonfire. And I thought, I ain't gonna panic. And so I start calling out to him, like, who are you? And I picked up my pace and start walking like kind of around him, close to the edge of the other side of the road. I didn't want to go near it. I said, who are you? Who's there? And just as I said that, he dove off into that river, made a splash and everything. I seen him. He dove. I seen his arms. I seen everything on him, and he dove right into that river. But as that happened, I forced myself to take a couple of seconds and just look into that water, like get closer and look in there. And I even waited for it must have only been about 30 seconds to me. It felt like hours because I was scared. But he never came up. He didn't come back at that water. So I just walked back down. I told myself, don't run. Just don't let it chase you. Don't freak out. Just keep walking. So I walked back down by that old house. It was abandoned by then. My uncle's passed away, but we'd still go down to the place where we'd all sit and have fires down there. So went back down, And as I got down there, I told my dad, all my cousins, my aunt, my uncle, what I had seen. And they were all trying to brush it off. Oh, don't worry about it. It's just probably this. It's probably an otter. It's probably that. And so no, I know what I've seen. So I just got quiet, sat there, and I was staring at that fire. But I wouldn't put my back to that area. I sat and make sure I was looking over there. I could see it. I was kind of scared. And it wasn't even long after that, this light appeared above the house, that old house up there. It was about the size of a beach ball. And if you guys ever seen a ghost light, what's what we call them? It's a light, but it doesn't cast any light from it. Like, it won't make a shadow off a tree right next to it, even though it's light and it's dark. It doesn't do that. It's just this self-contained light. And we seen it. We all looked at it, and as we stared at it, it made this swirling motion, and kind of like how the water goes down a tub. It swirled. And as it was swirling, it got smaller and smaller and smaller, and finally it just blinked out of existence. It was gone. And right at that moment, I told you guys I seen something up there. And I wasn't messing around. There was something up there. I think that might have been it too. I have no idea what that was, but those two things happened that night when we were down there. I don't want to take up a lot of time, so I'm just moving along with these stories.
Take all the time you want.
Okay, this next story is about this owl. Okay, so this old man, he was up in the mountains and he was hunting, and he would go up all by himself, pack his horse up, load it up, and he'd camp up there. And one night he was doing this. It's way back in the mountains by this place called Badger. You have to go way back in there. He just made it over to Shale that first night and ducked down into the valley of that other place where you can hunt by all these other mountains. These are the Rocky Mountains. And then as he's down there in his camp that night, he could hear somebody outside talking Indian. And his dog's getting, scared, kind of whining around, acting, cowering. And as he walks out his tent, he had one of those wall tents. And as he walks out, he sees over on this little tree, there's an owl sitting there. And it's speaking. It's speaking Blackfeet to him. And he is one of those guys that would shoot first, ask questions later. So that's what he did. He picked up his pew pew. And he bore down on it. And he pulled the trigger. As he pulled the trigger, he blacks out like he got knocked out. And he wakes up that morning still in his entry to his tent the whole next morning. And there's no feathers around, no nothing. He went and looked. And his dog was gone. He couldn't find his dog, and his dog was really loyal to him. He couldn't find the dog. So he says, all right, this trip's not going to be as successful, and I got to go back now. He took that as a sign, and he packed everything up, and he started riding out of there. As he rode out of there, his dog was at his house. His dog just left him all the way up in those mountains and ran about 20 miles home. Yeah, that's one of the stories about that. So the next one is same place, to Medicine River, just back across the creek again. So my sister, way back when, if you guys are old enough, you might remember those rotary phones, had a big, long cable on them. Boy, you could talk with that phone anywhere in the house. Where I'm from, that meant you were rich. If you had a big, long cable, you could pull it anywhere you want. So one night she was out on the porch talking to her boyfriend on the phone, and this owl flies up and it lands right on that handrail of that porch. And she's just looking at it. As it lands, it's not even long as they're staring at each other, it starts talking to her in Blackfeet again. And she freaks out so bad that she runs back into the house and jumps on my dad. My dad was sleeping on that couch. He liked to go out to at the time it was my grandpa's house, he liked to go out there and sleep on his couch, kind of get away from town. So he was sleeping there that night, and she just jumped on him. My dad told me she was just pointing at that door. She couldn't even talk. She was so scared. She was just pointing at the door. He didn't know what the heck was going on, so he got up and he walked to that door and he started looking around. There's nothing out there. Walked around the house. He was ready to fight. There was nothing out there. nothing there. She calmed down a little bit. Then my grandpa had woke up, and he come out and, what's going on out here? And she asked, oh, I said her name. My sister told him, there's something out there. It was an owl, and it was talking in Blackfeet to me. Well, what did it say? And she repeated those words, and he said, it was telling you it's hungry. He says, I don't know what that means, but you don't fool with it anymore. Don't worry about it. Just don't acknowledge it. And he went back to sleep. So it's not uncommon that these things have happened. These talking owls, they're spirits, but I don't know what they want. In our way, they're just messengers, but I don't know what those messages are. I guess it's for that individual person that it happens to. This next story happened to me. It was the first time I had ever seen anything paranormal in my life. So my folks used to go out to that same house where I seen that little person there. And they used to have these shindigs that would last almost all night. You could hear them in there dancing, laughing, geez, even crying together. When they would start dancing, a good song would come on, they'd start dancing. In that little house, you could just feel that whole thing shake, that floor. So it was one of those nights just like that. And all of us kids, we'd pile in. It was a one-bedroom little house. We'd pile into that bedroom. And they're my cousins, but they're older than me, and I just call them my sisters. That's how we were raised. And so all my sisters are in there. And, I was always curious. I was always out there getting into stuff and getting in trouble a lot, as a curious kid. And so I hear everybody stampeding out that front door. And I wondered what the heck's going on, because we were back there watching movies. I don't know if anybody remembers those old disc players. They're like big, giant disc movies that you used to watch a long time ago. So anyways, we were watching movies like that, and I heard this commotion. So I make it out that door before my sisters can stop me. And that front door is straight ahead of you. So I jump right off that porch, and I'm looking to see what all the men are doing, because they went out there fast. And all I remember is my one uncle on the left was picking up a hose, like a hose or something to throw. My uncle way on the other side looked like he was getting his pistol ready. My uncle in the middle was cussing, like, get out of here. And then my other uncle was picking up a rock. They were chasing something away. And as I looked over their heads on this horse trailer, this red horse trailer they had by that barn, I seen about 8 owls sitting up there. And they were all talking, and all of those owls were... When I was just a kid, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, because you could see them. I mean, you could hear them. They sounded like old men. Just talking in them up there. And those men chased them off. And as I didn't get to watch the whole end of it, because just then my mom grabbed me, get in this house. What are you doing out here? And she pulled me back into that house. But that was the first time I ever seen anything paranormal in my life. And it was those owls that spoke. So moving right along, this next story is about this phenomenon that we see on the creek too. They're giant owls. I don't know if anybody's ever seen or heard about those giant owls. And sometimes they're around that Bigfoot too. Like you'll see them standing by each other. These owls are about 6 feet tall, but they're spirits, and they talk too. So anyways, I only have one story of it. This is my cousin. His wife's dad was driving down that valley, across that bridge, and going up to the other side. They were heading out to that old agency place. And just down in the bottom, here's this old school there. It's called the Cold Feet School. As he was just passing near there, he seen one beside the road, and he almost hit it. He swerved to miss it, and he kept driving. That was the one story I heard about somebody almost hitting those giant owls. But the other stories I've heard was when they were having holy doings, ceremonies, down in that bottom there, down by the river, the floodplain is what we call the bottom, down by the river. Those things would show up in that tree line too, during those holy ceremonies that would take place out there. Now, I don't know what they are. I mean, like, are they a good spirit? Are they there to help you? that part I don't know about them. It's just a thing that I don't know if anyone's ever heard about, but they are a thing and they are real. You know, they happen down here where I'm from. So, anyways, those are my stories that I like to share, and I'm glad that you had me on again.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you want to come on, we love hearing your stories. You should write a book, honestly. You really should.
Well, I have a podcast. I'm not here to advertise my podcast. You know, I just like to tell stories. But if anybody wants to hear more, I guess I can say, well, Lodge Tales is my podcast, and it's on YouTube. What I do is I interview people that have scary stories similar to what you're doing. But my
Mhm.
niche is just the indigenous people and them. Give them a platform because not a
Yeah.
lot of them are comfortable sharing with non-natives, right? So in this
Mhm.
way, I can get them to open up and tell their stories. I've been doing it for a year now. I have like 40 episodes out. There are some members only episodes on Patreon, but I guess I really hate to advertise it. It feels cringy to me on somebody else's
No, you're
platform, but
fine.
but
Yeah.
yeah, that if you want to hear more, there's more on there. I tell about 4 hours of just my stories alone on there somewhere. So if y'all want to hear more, it's there. But yeah, I'd love to come
Yeah.
back again at some point.
Absolutely, anytime. And I'm going to follow you. I don't know if I can do it from here. I can never figure this out for some reason. Did I get it? I think I got it. Yeah. All right. Yeah,
All
come back
right.
anytime.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks. Yeah, you guys definitely go check them out and love those stories. Um, I don't know what's going on like with the comments. There's a lot of stuff grayed out, and I don't know. Like if you guys notice, like if you type something and it doesn't come through, I don't know why it's doing that. I'll mess with my settings after the stream. Lodge Tales. Someone's asking. Michael Griss, 1972. Yeah, it's Lodge Tales. Okay. We're going to do one more for the night, and then we might call it because it is getting pretty late. So, hello and welcome. Nope, they're gone. Well, that was weird. It actually like shot off the screen. I don't know. TikTok is crazy, you guys. It is crazy. I've had so many crazy glitches. Sometimes when I hit the back button instead of refreshing, the screen starts spinning. I have so many glitches. I don't know if anybody else is having this many, but it's a little bit crazy. At least my backgrounds work again. All right, guys, I think we're going to call it for the night. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here. I appreciate you all sharing your stories and taking the time out of your day or night, whatever time it is, wherever you are, to hang out here with me. I really, truly appreciate it. You guys be sure to follow. Go turn on post notifications so that you get notified when I go live. That's up the top. It's like a little bell icon, I think. And we will be back here. I don't know if I'll be back tomorrow night. I might, if not, probably the night after. So definitely sometime later in the week. And I'm going to try to for sure do Sundays and Mondays, provided that my backgrounds continue to work. So far, so good, but we'll play it by ear. Thank you all so much for coming. I hope to see each and every one of you back here next time. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you guys later. Good night, everybody.